The Lexus LX is commonly referred to as the reliable alternative in its class, something usually associated with a Lexus product. However, I think it deserves more than that. The LX570 is a truck with many qualities that most of its competitors can't match.
If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel so you can help me take this to the next level. Thank you. Now back to the review.
As I noted in last year's Lexus LS review, the front end here is nowhere near as bold and fierce as the new models. And even the headlight, I really think this just resembles the LS. It's the flagship SUV of Lexus, so that would make sense. Now, to acknowledge the elephant in the room, yes, this is largely a Toyota Land Cruiser, but I'm gonna highlight some key differences here that separate it. One, obviously, is the front fascia. You're gonna have fog lights standard, you're just gonna have halogens here. There's no LED option. The 8.9 inches of ground clearance that comes standard is great, and you also have an air ride in here that is standard.
This boosts the already impressive 29-degree approach angle to 31. Essentially lifting the truck 3 inches should ease your mind when off-roading your pricey Lexus. At night, these halogens will be outshined by LEDs, but the steering responsive function is a noteworthy plus. This generation came out in 2008, and it encountered a few slight changes until it was heavily refreshed in 2016. To this day, the new model has a lot in common with this one. Before we continue, I'd love to shout out Royal on the Eastside for loaning me this Lexus LX. Royal on the Eastside is a dealership in Bloomington, Indiana. If you're looking for something new, used, or just plain cool, check them out.
For those of you worried about parking this behemoth, you do have sensors up front and a front camera with a side camera on this side only. It's just a really low quality camera system, if I'm going to be honest. So Lexus LX570 is about 10 inches shorter than the Toyota Sequoia.
Which is kind of weird to think about. It's also shorter in height, length, and width than a 2011 Chevy Tahoe, which should help it navigate rough terrain, but it's still funny. I've always seen these as hulking SUVs. This kind of feels like the moment I found out that Tom Hardy was only 5'9". I think it looks massive to me because of its unapologetic box shape and a high hood line. But tell me what you guys think. Were you as deceived as me?
It's also going to have standard proximity unlock and lock. Yeah, you can lock it from every single door, but you can also unlock it from every single door. This has 20-inch rims with still a very appropriate amount of sidewall, so it's not super scary on bad roads. Now, I will have to note that 8.9 inches of ground clearance that can be lifted, well, it can also be lowered a few inches. That is for the easy access mode. Standard, you're going to have auto-dimming, power fold mirrors.
The rear end of the LX looks like a Land Cruiser that got sprayed with chrome as a way to tie in the look. For the bros out there, this thing has a departure angle of 23 degrees in the off-road ride height, which is good for its class, but not great compared to a Range Rover or Jeep. In other words, watch your ass on the trail.
It can tow 7,000 pounds, which is a little bit less than the Land Cruiser, which I believe tows a little bit over 8,000, most likely due to the differences in suspension. Now, you're going to have a split folding tailgate here. I like this. My Mitsubishi Outlander has this. What is he doing? My Mitsubishi Outlander has this, and well, it's pretty practical because, I don't know, if you're hiking a lot, you can take off your shoes here or really whatever you want, but I'll get into more of the cargo area later. For now, let's hop inside and I'll show you what 10 years does to an SUV's interior. Even when this came out, this was considered a pretty busy interior. Starting off with the gauge clusters, it's actually a really clean setup.
Compliments to Lexus for giving us analog gauges with an oil pressure and battery readout.
The steering wheel is outfitted with the African bubinga. The actual leather is high quality. The look is dated with this really chunky plastic for the airbag. A lot of the buttons remind me of the Toyota Sequoia. Really, there was only a few things that you could get added on to the Lexus LX. One was the luxury package, which gave you a heated steering wheel, cooled seats, heated rear seats, a entertainment system back here that I'll talk about a little bit more later.
This package also includes the hard to pronounce wood treatment and a front seat cool box that works quite well. Bonus points to Lexus for including knee padding too. I will have to knock it though for excessive mid-back support.
There was also the Mark Levinson sound system. It was a 19 speaker unit. It's pretty good. Surprisingly, the Bluetooth connectivity, while a little weird because it only lets you have like 2 connected audio devices and 4 connected call devices, it sounds pretty crisp.
I can't speak on the bass system in this, but I haven't been let down by Lexus audio yet.
Now the seats are very adjustable. They're quite soft. They could have some bolstering to them. I think that would really improve it. I want to feel a little bit more secure. Now the gated shifter look is very Toyota. Over here, it's pretty cluttered. The buttons also aren't the most intuitive. Like, I'm fine with the radio controls. That's fairly straightforward. But the climate control, it's like half of the functions are built right here, and then the other half are built into the actual system itself. You have to climate. It's not very intuitive. And then, I mean, the graphics, they look older. That's what I would expect.
Using this in 2020 has me appreciating every new infotainment system out there. This is functional, but it's more dated than moon shoes. The buttons look like they were lifted out of a Toyota product, and the screen resolution is mediocre at best. If we work our way down, you'll see the masculine toggle switches that control the air ride height, dampening, along with the 4-wheel drive system and crawl control.
The interior as a whole feels so luxurious because of the quality. If you get into a Mercedes GL or a Land Rover LR4, they don't hold up as well as far as the interior goes. Not even talking mechanicals. The last thing I'd like to touch on is space. Well, I'm 6'3". I'm okay. I don't have an excess of space. If you're 6'5", you're gonna probably start to run into a little bit of issues. Now I'm gonna hop in the back in my current pretty comfortable position. This is how I would drive and see how it feels. Sitting behind myself in the second row, I find legroom to be a little bit short if I'm trying to put my knees behind the seat, but I can pretty easily put them on the outside. The seats are so soft.
Still, support suffers due to the high floor, a common attribute of body-on-frame construction. The unibody Mercedes GL has a leg up there. The giant Sequoia will also provide more passenger space. Sidebar, I won't compare this to the Land Cruiser too much here because they're just so similar.
And just like the Sequoia, this has that rear seat entertainment system that comes with the luxury package. It also has a comprehensive 4-zone climate control back here with hookups to plug in, external headphones, but you also have your own wireless set back here, along with ashtrays because your kids need to smoke, damn it. You can fold down the center seat here. Gives you a remote for this that drops down automatically. And the screen is not as low resolution as the front screen, at least. Hey, you can move your seat electronically in the back. I would say the back seat of the Lexus LX570 is a little short on space, but big on character, and I would have no problems riding in the back here for a long time. Now, to get into the third row, you actually have a lever right here, and it will tumble. But this doesn't lock. You actually have to pull out the strap, and you'll hook it onto a grab handle in order to keep the seat up. While it's definitely the least luxurious place to be in the LX570, I fit back here. You're not going to get any of the soft touch materials that you would anywhere else. At least you have the same soft seats, but they're basically placed on the cargo floor itself, so you're not really going to have any support back here whatsoever. For kids, this would be fine. For adults, for a very short amount of time, this will pass. But if you actually want to carry adults, again, the Toyota Sequoia, much better bet. Behind the third row, though, you have a very small amount of space. If I wanted, I could fit all my camera gear behind here, so I wouldn't say it's not usable. And again, I love this tailgate here. You have an actual outlet back here. Weird. So, I mean, if you wanted to put like something longer back here, you could, because the seats are pretty flat. But if you tumble the second row and then you lift this, then you actually have more space for, say if something's taller. So this is actually a pretty versatile space for it being a body-on-frame SUV. So I'm not really gonna hate on the fact that Toyota designed the seats this way.
The interior of the LX is nice, but it feels more cramped than its dimensions might suggest due to the truck platform underneath. On the road, you certainly feel the underlying truck roots.
The Lexus LX570 drives like the caviar of, well, trucks. It's still very much a truck, but there's so much fluff that it's more than tolerable. Let me elaborate. This came out in 2008 originally. It's got the same engine. It's a 5.7 liter silky smooth V8. Now it makes about 383 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque. This was paired up to a 6-speed automatic, a super refined, responsive unit. At 0 to 60, expect it to be about low 7 seconds. Toyota quoted about 7.4 seconds. I feel like this could do better, but this has 113,000 miles and it hasn't even been inspected yet. Somebody traded it into Royal on the Eastside, just like this, so I don't want to really test my luck here with it. You still have the awesome manual shift mode too, that you can basically just select the highest gear that it's willing to go in, and it'll shift like normal until that point. Road noise is great. On this, albeit freshly paved road, I really just hear wind noise coming from the roof racks. This is also a pretty boxy vehicle, so I'm sure there is still some other wind noise apparent, but road noise is kept hush quiet.
And noise is still subdued on bad roads. That's not the case with the ride quality. Even on well-paved roads, you still have some subtle, springy vertical bouncing. That's an odd sentence, but if you've ever driven a truck, you know what I'm talking about here. Rough roads make it more obvious. The truck feels invincible though. No pothole or imperfections in the road thrash their way into the cabin. It's confident through the worst roads. It's a different type of drive compared to a unibody SUV. This disconnect from the road does make it feel a bit clumsy though.
Now, going around corners, the steering does actually require a little bit more effort than I was expecting. It's still rather light, but there's a slight bit of feedback in the wheel, which I was kind of surprised. It's still largely numb, but it's not the same overboosted Toyota steering that I've seen in other larger SUVs. I prefer the little extra heft. Now, at highway speeds, you're gonna have to put in a few more corrections than desired. It's not the most direct. It's actually far from being the most direct. It's a little sloppy, but big SUV, got a big excuse. I will again have to praise this for the plushness of the seats, because it really adds to this experience of just being sheltered. You're high up. It's almost like a third person view up here. You're so high up, and you're so separated from the elements in this thing. Now, brakes are spongy, to say the least. You gotta press them a little bit harder. It feels like an older truck in the brake pedal.
Which would make sense. It's a little peculiar how small these rotors look when compared to many modern luxury SUVs. I thought I'd touch on this a little, but body roll is not awful here around corners. The truck itself is pretty stiff. Again, it's not adept at cornering, but with regard to roll, it beat my expectations of a 3-ton luxury SUV. Despite its full-time nature, I never felt any binding from the system. A locking center diff and low-range gearing comes standard. I'm a little disappointed that a true rear locker is absent, especially when that's available on the 4Runner, but this does have crawl control at least, which functions as a trick off-road cruise control. Using brakes and brains, crawl control can also dig you out of some tough situations. I didn't get to take this on a real trail, but I did get to experience just how comfortable this thing is on a gravel, rut-ridden road. Even at speed, it was smooth. Stuff that would make me cringe in a Subaru Outback was shrugged off by the Lexus LX570.
Now, a key difference between this and the Toyota Land Cruiser is going to be the air ride. That's something that comes standard on the LX, and it's going to give it a different ride than the standard shock absorbers in the Land Cruiser. I also have to say that visibility in here is pretty freaking good. Reliability on these has been great. Really, they don't have much of any issues. And that's a huge selling point that obviously I can't miss with a vehicle like this. And it's the reason why that something like this is going to cost in the upper 20s, even when it's close to 10 years old and even when it has 113,000 miles.
While reliability data is limited on the Land Cruiser and LX, there is plenty of data on the robust 5.7 liter and 6-speed combo. The 5.7 has a clean record. With good maintenance, 400,000 miles isn't outlandish. The only common faults include a leaky water pump, slight oil consumption in some cases if high quality oil isn't used, and the crankcase ventilation system sensor. My parents had a Sequoia with this engine and saw no issues whatsoever, even after 196,000 miles. The transmissions are also strong and known to handle the additional torque of a TRD supercharger. Additionally, all the power electronics on this one worked. Same thing with the Sequoia I reviewed a few years ago. The air ride never broke, the power third row, tailgate, mirrors, you name it, it all still functioned properly. Something that really can't be said about any other large luxury vehicles. I could sit here and compare this to an Escalade, Mercedes, or Land Rover, but if you're shopping for an LX, I'm assuming dependability is a top concern, and those can't hold a candle to this. To conclude, there's definitely an ask for this seat, but the LX is still extraordinarily niche. If you want a Lexus truck-based SUV with off-road credentials, I'd point you toward the GX, as it's cheaper, packs a V8, and is a little easier to live with. A QX56 is cheaper with similar attributes and reasonable reliability. If size is a bigger priority than luxury, honestly, a Sequoia won't disappoint, especially in platinum kit. So why spend the extra cash on this? Well, it's a damn unicorn on and off-road. The weird cargo area and split fold tailgate are unique features. That 3-inch lift with the air ride adds capability and comfort. And the size plus the rarity of this thing makes it stand out wherever you go. The LX570 is just as comfortable in the valet lane as it is on some of the worst terrain out there. It's not all about flash or excess like some of its competitors, but if you want a reliable, do-anything full-fledged luxury SUV, the LX is a decent option. However, if you also want something with more presence that's a little different, and you have the finances to do so, pull the trigger on an LX. Oh, and if you think this has too many miles to warrant the price, go buy that Escalade with 30,000 less on the dash and tell me how you feel about it after a few years. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the review, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.
The most is in the driving dynamics, which is a good thing as much as it's a bad thing.